I want to just hasten to say that from its inception, the Maritime Park, a beautiful idea, a great rendering, and consistently it has been diluted and marred by bad decisions, things that weren't right the first time. And we clearly acknowledge that even from the selection of the master developer. Some questions could even be raised about the relationship with council and CMPA board in terms of voting and how those things work. But I just want to point out, and actually what I'm getting at, I want to ask you to maybe table or consider tabling or not vote on this resolution, the recommendation of Resolution 06-12. Number one, I think most of you know that all of the public entertainment recreation venues, the Civic Center, the rationale for doing away with the municipal auditorium, Singer Theater, for the most part, you know, they're supplemented. For the most part, they've always been subsidized by tax dollars. The mere fact that the city submitted the bid and is now you're going to be voting to approve them being awarded a bid for the management, especially of the amphitheater. I just think it's so inconsistent with what we already know has not worked well for us. The other thing, just the current rationale or reasoning, and one of the promises of the Maritime Park development would be a greater participation by the private sector. Of course, public dollars were used for its development, but now we see that the trend is turning toward public dollars, tax dollars being used again for its management and maintenance, and I think that's a great inconsistency and really a disservice to taxpayers who are paying for, you know, the service rendered, and also to taxpayers who are also business people who could be earning incomes, especially from the maintenance and the management of the entertainment venues, specifically the amphitheater. And finally, there was this notion of more inclusion with some respect to diversity. I think Councilman Gerald alludes to it from time to time. Most people remain silent on it, but there is a great disparity in the diversity of public events, especially in our facilities like the Civic Center, the municipal auditorium, you know, even though it's not there anymore. It's really not fair. And how could you expect to get anything better, make any improvement, or even be consistent with promises made for more diversity, more inclusion, especially by the private sector and small business development, if you were to approve this tonight? I would just ask that you'll consider it being rediscussed. I think the Maritime Park Board, like I say, its makeup, because there are a couple of council members on the board, so it's sort of like a double whammy just at the appearance of it, and that might be something that needs to be explained better. But I think you do yourself a great service and the citizens a great service to give it further consideration for your vote.
Well, thank you, Reverend. Ms. Myers has her light on, and I'd urge you to stick around until that resolution's discussed. So.
Well, I wish I could, but I had to take advantage of this opportunity. It's something I'm pretty familiar with, feel strongly about, but I have another commitment. Young man's being married tonight and has asked me to attend their ceremony.
Well, if you can stick around just for a moment, Ms. Myers wants to say something.
It's good to see you, Reverend King.
Good to see you.
And I definitely will take everything you have said tonight into consideration. I think this is a very serious move on the part of the city and the CMPA, and you have raised some very valid concerns. And I just want you to know that I am taking those concerns into consideration tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Community Maritime Park Associates Incorporated, CMPA. Recommendation is that City Council approve a contract between the City of Pensacola and CMPA providing for management, operations, and maintenance of the Vince Wibb Senior Community Maritime Park. Further, that City Council approve a supplemental budget resolution to provide funding for said contract.
What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second. Properly moved in second. Comments? Adam Deweese.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just wanted some clarification on how we're going to track the actual costs. I know that after the hurricanes with FEMA, we had to track for reimbursement actual time invested. I don't want to see the CMP become a black hole of unknowns. I think if part of the daunting task is trying to go back and document something after the fact. I would like to see something in place for tracking time, both on a public works part of the house and also for neighborhood services, and I wonder if that's been contemplated and how we'll go about doing that.
Do we have any comments on that?
Yes, Mr. President, we will. We certainly will be tracking all of that because that's how we're going to get repaid. And I can have Mr. David Flaherty certainly come up and explain that in a little more detail. Mr. Flaherty?
Thank you, council members. Each budget, particularly neighborhood service for us, in relationship to the management agreement for the parking, the vendors, and the community activities that are going to go on in the park, we've established a new project code or a division within our department. So it has its own budget associated with it. So we will track it just like we do our athletic program, our recreation program, our community centers, our swimming pools. We'll have project numbers that are coded appropriately. We'll also have revenue numbers as well. So tracking it really won't be the issue, and that's done obviously through the finance department, and they set up all those project numbers.
So that'll become part of the monthly report that we get as a finance report, or should council make that request of the finance department?
We certainly can make that available.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other question? Any question from the audience?
I do have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
One of my ears.
Thank you. I think Councilwoman DeWeese brings up a good point, and quite frankly, I would like to see that in the contract because things tend to get lost. I've been to a lot of CMPA meetings over the years, and the issue of tracking how money has been spent has sometimes been an issue. So I would like it to be set forth in the contract as to the reporting requirements to City Council regarding the expenditures and receipts of money. I want to bring up another issue, however. It's an issue that I've brought up before, and it has to do with what type of instrumentality of the city is the CMPA. And I bring this up because there are 3 city council members who serve on that board. And the charter provides that no elected city official shall hold any appointive city office, city board membership, or city employment while in office, except as may be provided by state law. I don't know what state law provides that city council members can serve on the CMPA that is now a so-called instrumentality of the city. Previously, city council members served on the board because the CMPA was a private, non-profit entity and not an instrumentality of the city. The resolution that was passed, which provided that the city council members could serve on the CMPA, specifically said that it was designated a special district. It's never complied with the requirements of the law to be a special district under 189. So I really would like to know, and what law under the charter gives the city council members the authority to serve on the CMPA. I'm not going to vote to approve this contract until I know the answer and definitively to that question. So, City Attorney, do you know the answer to that question? Specifically, what law, state law, allows for dual office holding on the CMPA?
Before we venture into that, will that have any impact on the action that we are doing, any significant impact on what we're contemplating on this vote?
It will
I don't know, but
yes.
Mr. Attorney, would you care to venture this?
Can I answer why he asked me a question?
Yes.
Yes, because I would ask the three members of who are serving on the CMPA. They've already voted for this. I think it would be a conflict of interest, and I don't know that I would ask them to recuse themselves from voting on this. That's the impact it would have.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
All right, let's see if I can straighten this out a little bit. If the question is, may a city council member serve as a trustee of the CMPA simultaneously with their council membership and not violate the dual office holding provision, I believe the answer is yes, they may. If the question is what exactly is the CMPA, then I would opine that it's clearly not a special district, but I wrote a memo some time ago. I'd have to go back and take a look at it. It's the CMP is whatever it needs to be to accomplish the particular business purpose that needs to be accomplished.
And I find that very troubling. And the charter says state law, so I need to know which specific state law gives them the authority to have dual office holding. And I find it really troubling that the CMPA can just become anything we want it to at any time. If we need new market tax credits, it's a non-profit private entity that owns the multi-use stadium and all the public improvements over there. If we want it to be an instrumentality of the city for the purposes of dual office holding and to sell Build America bonds, then it becomes that. I have a real problem with that because that's not transparency. That's just willy-nilly, it being whatever we want it to be. And I think it's a serious problem if we, because now we can appoint all the board members, but if we serve on the CMPA as council members and we are not clear under what state law, specific state law, and I only know of a few, and we don't, 189 is one of them. And I think when the resolution was passed, it said special district, and it meant a special dependent district under 189, and we've never complied with the law to become a dependent special district. And I'm going to keep being bothered by this until I get a definitive answer. Which law? Tell me the law. The specific Florida statute that gives city council members the authority to serve on the CMPA.
And understand, I'm only going to state this so we have a clear record because, you know, you and I go back a long time and this isn't about you and me. But for the record, the CMPA was never contemplated to be a special district. It never was a special district. It's not a special district, and it never will be a special district. That's the best I can tell you on that one.
But the problem is, we have to have a law that provides for dual office holding. And 189 specifically provides for dual office holding for dependent special districts. So what I'm asking is, what law are we going on to provide us the ability to have dual office holding? I think it is in the city's interest to be able to appoint all of the CMPA members. That is in the city's interest. However, you know, I have a problem with the city council members serving in that capacity. We could, and that's why I will be voting against this agreement here, because I'm not sure what the CMPA is, and I would like to be able to vote for this agreement, but until I get a clear answer as to who has authority to approve this agreement, I won't be voting for it.
Councilwoman DeWeese.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'm going to go further down this path, and I don't mean to offend any council member with my statements, but when this came forward for us to consider, I read in great detail several times the contract and had some questions of staff and also stakeholders in the community, because we are moving into a different phase. I mean, we've had a almost decade-long discussion about what this is to be, and it is absolutely beautiful what it's become. I just toured it last week. But my thoughts were this, because we were moving out of the construction phase and the decision-making phase on a great deal of this, and that logically the CMPA in its duties, first of all, but also in its composition, is going to change drastically. I don't know that it will need to be 14-member board, and one of the things that we could consider is that the city council members resign when this project is complete. And from there going forward, whatever the board composition is, if they choose to reduce their size to whatever is acceptable for the new market tax credits and only meet as needed, because we're not in the phase of design, construction, build out, all of these things complying to the new market's tax credits. So I don't know, Mr. Messer will have to lead me through this, but if we can approve this and have it be subject to the resignation of the 3 council members, one is not here, so I don't know if that will work if she's going to be back by Thursday, if that's something that would help clear the air on this, or if just having the discussion today and hearing from the council members that do sit on the board, if they see themselves going into the future, you know, then it will still continue to be an issue, and your concern of what state law actually allows them to be on the board and also serve on the council. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If it's something that we can, in the composition of the CMPA, I mean, from the outside, I have not sat as a council member on the CMPA board, but, you know, it's going to change drastically, and the membership of the CMPA won't be asked to be making so many big decisions.
Well, if I heard counsel correctly, did he not indicate that this was not a special district, so it's not relevant to the issue that Councilwoman Margus brought up? Did I understand that?
I think it's a pretty fair assessment, Mr. President.
Okay. Any other comments regarding this? I'd like to hear comments from the members who are on the CMPA regarding this issue, but you feel that you need to resign from the CMPA as addressing this issue or not?
Can I just clarify? It wasn't resign from CMPA to address this issue. It was just, what do we intend as a council? Do we feel we're going to need council representation on the CMPA? And I have not served, so I just wanted that to be out there for discussion.
And be a discussion for future.
Right. Yeah.
Are there any other comments regarding this issue here? Yes. Audience, yes.
Yes, sir. I'm only rising to speak because I have spoken to the CMPA regarding the fact that I also believe there's a conflict when the city council members sit and vote to approve a contract as members of the board and then sit to ratify that contract. I requested at the time of the initial approval that the 3 city council members recuse themselves so that they would be able to vote at this point, and it was a moot point at that point. But I do believe, along with Ms. Myers, that there is a bit of a conflict when you are the designer, you come up with the recommendation, and then you end up also being the ratifying body. There is an issue regarding the 501c3 status and the instrumentality, that there's a very fine line we've had to walk, and I'm a bit surprised to find out at this point that we're not a special district, because that has been repeatedly used as the reason that certain things were done that we had the right to because we were a special district. So it is a bit perplexing in this moment, and not having my files here to call up the exact moments. My only consideration to ask of you is that whatever language this contract has, that whatever the city has to have happen be locked in this contract. If you want to report on a weekly, monthly, bi-weekly matter, whatever, it should be in the contract and not left, because that becomes, again, subject to the board approval. And while 3 city council members may currently be on there, I believe ultimately that you are going to have to look at the long-term relationship from a legal standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. The attorney has given us an opinion in determining the legitimacy of what we're about to vote on. If we have credence in his conclusion, you have to accept that in your own mind. Councilwoman Myers has brought up a question as whether we should be pursuing this until we get further explanation. We have a motion to approve it and a second. So are there any other comments about this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposes?
Me.
Okay, pass. I might suggest, though, that if council will give us a point paper on this particular issue at a later date, since, would you please?
Yes, Mr. President. I have an opinion on the dual office holding issue, and I'll have it scanned in and emailed tomorrow, depending on what time we cease fire tonight.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Yeah, and I remember seeing that memo and being a board member, or excuse me, a trustees member of the CMPA. I've received that. I've gotten opinions from Mr. Messer and other staff members that it's okay for me to be a city councilman and sit on the CMPA, and so I've been satisfied. I don't really know what else to do. I don't feel conflicted. I don't really know what else to do. If my attorney's telling me that it's okay, I'm going to take his opinion and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the committee report. These are items that did not get voted unanimously at the Monday meeting. The first one is item A, contract for management, operations, and maintenance between City of Pensacola and Community Maritime Park Associates, Inc., CMPA. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and Ms. Jewel Cannada-Wynn would like to speak to this. Welcome back, lady.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bless all of you.
Good to see you.
for being here. Jill Cannada-Wynn, 605 West Blunt Street. And like all of you, I'm excited about the Maritime Park and its opening. However, I do have some concern about this particular management agreement. One of the concerns is that the park and its oversight. First of all, the council has overall oversight. From the council, we have the CMPA board, which is appointed by the council. Then we have 3 members of council who are on the CMPA board. And now we're getting ready to give the management contract to the City of Pensacola, who employees themselves are oversight by the mayor. So here, all of this, it just breeds of conflict and possibilities of conflict and who's actually overseeing what, and will there be fair oversight in this when it all circles all of it up under the one government here. The other issue here is the inclusiveness of the management agreement. When the management agreement was decided at the CMPA board, a minority business was also included in that. A minority business or a small business when you look at this, you had the City of Pensacola stacked up against this small business, and of course, the roll was on. This small business did not have fair play, in my view of it. In the bidding process, after the process was done, that seemed fine. But once that process was over and negotiations began, then I felt that there was not going to be fair play with this particular business. I talked to that business owner, and the business owner said some of that CMP, that bid was discussed with her, but it was not from what she thought she received at the CMPA board meeting and what was voted on. And I think that that comparison there of this small business and here the entire city of Pensacola farmed out whatever they wanted, carved out whatever they wanted to control, and then gave or tried to attempt to give this small business what they wanted this small business to have. And I think that particular setup is unfair. The city of Pensacola has worked hard to improve its images with small business and its commitment to small business, and I don't think that that particular process after the bidding process was fair to that small business. The other concern that I have here is the fact that the city itself is taking maintenance, landscaping, and all of those from the whole idea of the CMP, of this Maritime Park, was to help with private development. And I know Councilmember Gerald had stated that it is finally over. It is not over. I want to remind this council that a major part of the CMPA and the Maritime Park is private development. We cannot wait on our laurels and just go down there and watch baseball and listen to music at an amphitheater. We have to develop that private sector as well. And don't forget that that is a major part of paying for that park over that $40 million that we have. So those are the only things I have to say. I just want you to make sure that you are vigilant and making sure that it is profitable and that it is fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. DeWeese has some comments for you.
I actually just had a question, and I wanted to thank Jewel for coming down and speak about this, because it just made me think of something. I did read the contract at length, but will there be an opportunity for any subcontracting from this contract if, you know, the city wants to contract certain facets of it out to small businesses?
Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. President, the answer to that question is yes, there will be opportunities to subcontract.
And will this be advertised, or how will have we developed a process for that?
I do not believe that a process has been developed at this point.
Okay. That might be something for the EBO committee, would it, to address and maybe come up with. I don't know. I haven't been to the meetings to see if that's something they would take on or not.
Are you on that, Mr. Gerald?
Yes, I will. Are you calling on me now?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to clarify for Ms. Cannada-Wynn what I meant when I said it's over. And it's related to your earlier statements about the contract and how it's gone. At this level, it's over now. If it's not in there to do the right thing, it's all over. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, I just wanted to welcome Joel Cannada-Wynn back. I think your comments are well taken. I have shared the same concerns you have articulated. I will not be supporting this contract. I watched as the process unfolded, and I have some problems with the way this contract was entered into. I also have some concerns regarding how this contract will impact services in other parts of the city, even though I've been given assurance by Mr. Garza and Mr. Flaherty that there will be no negative impact on reduction of services to other parts of the city as a result of this contract. I still have my doubts. So I will not be supporting it for those reasons and some of the reasons you've articulated and Reverend King articulated earlier.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Eleanor Johnson.
Thank you, President and City Council. As I brought to the Council before as a citizen, I had referred a mentor, speaking of the small business, that did submit a proposal for services. And this company has over 15 years experience. And
Is this the one from Detroit?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was delayed today at the airport, so she wasn't able to be here. Still willing to do some services for the city. Was still very excited about it, but still left in limbo. Did receive a call for a process of possibly being a promoter and reapplying, and which did not sit too well with her because of all the effort that she put in to submit the proposal at the last minute. And after listening to 5 DVDs of the minutes, and in between submitting a proposal and doing oral interview, Mr. Johnson recommended that the city just handle everything before any of the committee members ever read a proposal. And so she almost missed the opportunity of even ever being able to present her proposal. But several of the board members did say, yeah, let's bring a face to the proposal. So she was able to present. My concern as a citizen is, how do we follow up when people submit proposals? Having received proposals myself for the arts, I always receive a letter or a conversation or a call or some formal document stating that I'm either being considered, and there may be some issues that need to be reevaluated to be considered, or I'm either not considered, one or the other. So as a citizen, and having recommended Pensacola and her having liked Pensacola, it's not looking very well in terms of our relations, of not following up and getting phone calls that are very vague. And she is a businesswoman, and she was bringing her own money to put up front. And getting back to what Mr. King brought up in terms of taxpayers' money, several of the board members said, yes, we would like a company that is hungry, that has excitement, that wants to show profit. So that's where she was coming from in terms of putting her own money up. And she also mentioned that if you delegate all those different parts of amphitheater out, you will not make a profit. You need parking, you need food and beverage, you need vending, you need all those entities, because as a whole, a concert itself may not make a profit. So I'm just wondering, how will we make a profit if everything is divvied out in different city offices? And that's my last comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Audra Carter.
Good evening, President and City Council. I come to you today recognizing that we are challenged yet again, and I agreed that the go forward with the contract, and I also put a placeholder in it for inclusion. And the reason why I couldn't talk to the CMP board is because I use the SPE MBE program. So I'm here today to ask you to help me make sure that we're clear so we don't make any missteps on what that would be in terms of inclusion, because we had no way really of marrying the council's concerns, being a municipality, and the covenant with the community. That was a legal issue there. So I felt that so that we would have something rather than nothing, because we're going to sign the contract and and try and move forward, we should put something there until the MGT study is done in May. Without it, we would have no inclusion at all. So I took the liberty of finding the ordinance in 2007 and the ordinance of 2008, and I read them, and I'm sure that you guys is probably brought up to date, but what I need to know, because there's a couple of things in it is concerning, Councilman Gerald said, in the 2007 ordinance where they did the presentation, it spoke to the Gulf Coast African Chamber and the CMPA and the city working together to make sure there's inclusion. So I think as leaders, we need to clarify that. It's a part of the ordinance, very important for us to be clear as we move forward so we can tell the community it's not a perfect plan, but we're working on it. Another concern is that the figures for inclusion of the goals were, some were 7, some were 5, and then some was 5 to 10. We need to be clear and specific. If we're going to do 10, and we can say that we're going to do 10, I need the council to say we're going to do 10 for this project. We've been struggling with that inclusion. I do believe everyone has the right place and they're all working together, but I think clarity is very much needed here so that everybody can say what they have to say and say, okay, without clarity, we know we can't go that direction. We need something, so we need clarity on that. It also said that we're going to have an ongoing program, and as the EBO chair, I have really, really tried to be more inclusive, and I think we're working well in that direction. And I think transparency is really important, and it's what I'm trying to do today with you. I cannot bring this to the CMP board. This ordinance has to do with this council. And it truly is only that until the MGT study comes back, and then, of course, the board and us, we have an opportunity to look at it and adjust these numbers. So what I'm asking you to do today is to just clear up those matters and help the Equal Business Opportunity Committee help to move forward with making it inclusive. And I do believe that this community has moved far, and we're going to continue to move in a better direction. But this is a new day, and change is tough. And I pledge my support to the board, and I'm sure the board does, and I speak for everyone, and those that are here will tell you, we really want to do the right thing. We're really trying to get it better. And we do realize we can't leave holes in legal documents. And moving forth, I think that that's the clarity that I need as a board member to make sure that our board, or the CMP, is making the right decision in terms of inclusion. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weiss and Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did want to ensure that the wording within what we're voting on tonight, if that carries through with what we currently have with our city SBE, MBE, WBE goals, and should those change, be updated, that would carry during the term of this contract as well, so that that is clear in this contract.
Mr. Reynolds or our lawyer, either one. Step up,
thank you, Mr. President. Like any other contract that the city is responsible for and a party to, our ordinance will apply to this particular contract.
Does that take care of you, Mr. Weiss?
I believe so. I know Ms. Carter articulated that in one place that it was 5 to 7, and another place it was 10, and we updated everything for the transition in government. So I would hope that that was addressed at that point. But I just want to ensure that whatever we're being held to as the city, if we subcontract things out, that we're adhering to that requirement.
You know the answer to that, Mr. Reynolds?
I can tell you, Mr. President, that all valid ordinances will be.
Okay. All right.
We have a responsibility as the contracting partner to ensure that we operate under the constraints of our current ordinances.
I see. Gentleman stepping up here, if you would allow him to speak, Mr. Reynolds.
Absolutely, sir. Mr. Spears.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of council, I just want to specifically reference the clause in Article 7 that states the city will follow all SMB, MB policies and procedures as adopted by the city council in the execution of this agreement, and that is not time sensitive, so if those ordinances change, it would apply.
What is the issue, though, that Ms. Carter brought up, that 5 to 7, 7, 10,
I'm not aware of those issues. I believe they're in the current ordinance, and different percentages of participation that's stated in various locations within those.
Okay, all right. Ms. Carter?
In the ordinance, it gave a range. It wasn't specific. And ordinarily, I would be okay with that, but because I'll speak for myself, I feel like we've gotten in so much trouble not specifying. 20 years from now, if I'm not here, I want my grandchildren to say, you know, grandma she was looking at things. So if it's 5, then someone can say it was really 5. Someone said, well, no, it's 7. Sometimes you just need to be specific. And unless there's a reason why we can't, I'd like for this particular project to be 10, at a minimum, because we're going to come back and do the MGT study, and we'll then let that override, and it'll wipe the slate clean. But if I allow no number or a range, then it's just 5 is a lot different when you're talking about millions of dollars that can be led to a conclusion process, and it's about money at the end of the day. So it does say, and I will give this to the administrator, it does say 5 to 10. So it leaves it up to the city to do or not do, or make it 5 or 10. But I think we need to be specific and just go ahead and do a number. And I don't see any reason why we can't use 10, because over the last 5 years, we've done 10 and better. And I believe we're going to do more and more, but I think we need to have a ceiling and a minimum.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Townsend, don't go too far. Audra.
Can I just finish really quickly with
Yes,
my
ma'am.
questions? I'd like to know, and I know I'm putting someone on the spot over here, so I apologize, but is there an issue if we've been at 10% already of stating it to be 10% or higher? Will that create a problem with this contract?
Mr. Reynolds?
I'm not aware of any problems. You know, we are, again, constrained by the ordinances, and but I'm unaware of any issues.
Well, let me ask the attorney. He keeps hiding back there behind Ms. DeWeese.
I'll lean back sufficiently.
Based on tonight's proceedings, I'm trying to get as far away as I can from everybody. If the question is there a pure legal problem with that, the answer is no.
Okay.
Okay, then my final question is, if we have in fact been at 10, can that be verified by a staff member at this point, or where did the number come from, Ms. Carter?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the historical reports, which we do have more current reports that do that quarterly, and the purchasing department has been very diligent, and I think you will see, you know, 9, 10, or I'm sure it's verifiable, or whatever that number is, let that be the minimum, and then increase from there, and of course look at it again when we have the MGT figures after May.
So as I understand, it would be a minimum goal. It's not an absolute number, so it's almost an act of good faith to do that. So I'd like to make a motion that we amend this to be a minimum goal of 10%
Second.
or higher.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second to amend the main motion. Clear all the lights right now, please, because we need to just speak to the motion that's on the floor. Okay. Anybody wish to speak to this particular motion? Mr. Geralds.
Thank you, Mr. President. What Ms. Carter is referring to, and it was in the, I read it in the pre-disparity study that was done by MGT, and the language that has stood the test of the courts and has been accepted and was recommended that we use is a percentage goal, not a set-aside. It depends on the words that you use that the courts will accept as acceptable. So when we're talking about setting goals and identifying things that we would like to do, the appropriate language would be percentage goal. And that refers to the good faith effort that you were referring to, and all of that goes into that. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other, fine with that, Ms. Carter?
I'm fine.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So we're voting on the amendment that's on the floor, and that's to have a goal minimum of 10%. Minority inclusion. Please vote. And that passes 7-1. Okay, thank you. Now, We're back to the main motion now. I had several lights that were on. People were wanting to speak. Ms. Dubuisson is waiting to speak to us. So if you want to speak to that, just indicate. Ms. Dubuisson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise this evening because I received a call this afternoon from the person that Ms. Johnson referenced from Detroit who had been delayed in Memphis. She really wanted to be here to speak to this council. And I felt in a very uncomfortable position of responding as a citizen of Pensacola because I had had quite a few conversations with her pursuant to her visit here. I did not know her before this entire process began, and I really did not expect myself to be involved at this level of the contract situation. But I would like to bring to the council's attention that while I do realize you probably have the votes that this contract will move forward and that because of time constraints we probably don't really have much choice as a community, there was issued, in order to obtain the respondents for this contract, an item called Request for Proposals, Property and Facilities Manager for the Community Maritime Park Project, October 26, 2011. There were many meetings in between the time that this was issued and this event has come, and during those times, there's been this generalized discussion by the CMPA of the need to include the minorities at all levels. We had a first-class, world-quality event promoter experienced with local governments in 2 different states who came down here and offered to cap the losses at this city. I believe her cap was $238,000, that would be the most that would ever need to be put in on an annual basis based on her budget. The CMPA decided that it was probably more appropriate to have the city because no one believed it could be done with that minimum of a loss. And as you look at the contract, you will see that the city itself does not believe that it could meet that. There was some question raised as to the credibility of this company being able to do it, but no one did the research in advance. They have done it after the fact. In coming to the final vote, the CMPA at the final stage said, we would really like to give this contract to the individual from Detroit, but because of experiences we had with Scott Davidson, we don't want to put ourselves in a similar situation. And so we're going to strongly encourage the city to work directly with this experienced woman to bring her abilities and her knowledge to the benefit of this community, which she voluntarily spent 3 times her money coming down here on short notice to respond to and to speak with. She spoke to our mayor, who encouraged her to submit the proposal that she did, because at that point the city was not going to submit a proposal. She spoke with the EBO officer. She spoke with quite a few people. So the idea appeared to be that the city really wanted to get the best opportunity for itself. But in looking at the contract, Mr. Flaherty and his crew are a wonderful crew of parks and recreation people and neighborhood services people, so this does not reflect on them. But on the professional experience category of managing the events and the types of concession sales and stadium, amphitheater needs that we have, the experience is not there on the city's part. So we are taking a risk. We are thinking that we are going to be able to get up to speed. And in all of this time, there has not been, I believe, appropriate communication to try to include this woman. It is a loss to the city, and I would ask you each to review the request for proposals and look at how many steps were eliminated during the process. Mr. Johnson, who just conveniently left the room, was head of the EBO, and the evaluation sheet, which was included in here, which 2 members of the CMPA filled out before they had to leave the meeting that night, were never collected. It became a different process. Please correct this in the future, and as contracts are given from the city from this point forward, please make certain that whatever advertised process is advertised, that is the one that is followed, and that when the body comes to a conclusion, that is what is followed through on.
Just stay there, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm hesitant to speak on this particular issue, but the bottom line is that these are all issues that probably should have been taken up with the CMPA. The city and Mr. Flaherty's department did an outstanding job in a presentation, and the CMPA determined that they were the best individuals to bring this forward. And as the city bringing this forward now for city approval, I don't know about the issues, frankly, that Ms. Dubuisson is bringing forward, but I can tell you from the city's perspective that we're very confident that we can move forward and achieve these goals and objectives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Myers?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Ms. Dubuisson for coming here tonight and speaking and bringing these things to our attention.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I witnessed some of what you're talking about myself, and I had some real concerns about it at the time. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'll speak further at a public forum in the future about some recommendations that I would have.
Mr. Johnson?
I call the question.
Well, there's not a second on that, but we don't have any more lights, so.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, all right. Everybody please vote on the main motion as amended. That passes 7-1. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Now that we've amended the contract, it has to go back to the CMPA, doesn't it?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think the CMPA gave the chair the authority to handle changes of that order, because that language about the minority small business stuff was not in the contract that was approved by the committee, and we just sort of, or by the CMPA, we gave the chair. That was my understanding. I'll let those people who know these things.
Okay, well,
Get out of the way.
I mean, we voted for an amendment to the agreement, so does it have to go back before the CMPA?
My understanding is that you didn't vote to amend the agreement. You imposed upon us as city staff to ensure that we are going to operate within a 10% boundary.
Okay.
I don't think that requires an amendment of the agreement. I think that's an internal action that the council has stated that we will fall within. That's in other words, it's not something that the CMPA is actually a party to. That's internal to the city.
Can I have the motion read back, Madam Clerk, that was voted on?
The City Council, here's the main motion.
Okay.
That the City Council approve a contract between the City of Pensacola and CMPA providing for management, operations, and maintenance of the Vince Webb Senior Community Maritime Park. Further, that City Council approve a supplemental budget resolution to provide funding for said contract. And as amended, that we would have the SBE, WBE, MBE 10% goal minimum.
And if I may, Mr. President, if you look at it this way, there's nothing that the CMPA could do with that particular resolution. That is an internal city requirement at this point.
Okay, good, thank you. Dr. Pratt, your light's on.
I didn't mean for it to be on, sorry.
Okay. Well, we're finished with that issue.